Good evening, everyone. As you guys may or may not know, I am KG's, not alone. As promised, I said that I would come to you guys and say thank you definitely for subscribing to our YouTube channel. KG stands for Kelly and Grayson. This page will be about our journey in life. Grayson is a special needs child. I am a single mother going day to day, living a different life, but challenging and exciting. We have our highs, we have our lows. So I encourage you to tune in. I will share from time to time things along our journey, our daily routine, funny things, experiences, accomplishments and goals that Grayson meets, and even ones that I meet as a parent of this amazing child. Grayson is 6 years old. He began his journey on June 3rd in 2017. So Grayson was born into a happy home, a mother and a father, in a whole marriage. He was born at 32 weeks with a IVH4 hemorrhage. That means he was bleeding in the ventricles of his brain, but it was in the lower back part of his brain. So Grayson was only supposed to survive for 4 days. They promised me that I could go in and out and I could stay the 4 days in the hospital, but they just didn't know what this little person was going to end up becoming, or who or what he was. That's kind of how it was referred to, who or what he will be. So we waited the 4 days, and every day we went in there, Grayson would thrive a little more. Let me roll back just a second. So I was in bed the Friday night, the Friday that my stomach began to become really hard, like volleyball hard. And I knew I was only 7 months pregnant. It was like, why is this happening? I can't be having Braxton Hicks right now. In my mind, because I'm not a doctor and I don't know, I was just like, this is abnormal. So I called the doctor. They were like, eat sugar, lay on your left side, try to get rest, hydrate, and see what happens. Well, Grayson really didn't move. So my then husband was on his way home from work about 9 p.m. So by 11, he was home. I had showered. He was ready to go over to the hospital. We lived like less than a second from the hospital. So we get there, they hook me up to the fetal monitor, and all of a sudden the room went haywire. There were a million people in the room. They told me that Grayson had to come. He had to come right now. My doctor was away on a cruise, so I had the pleasure of the interim doctor, or the fill-in doctor, a midwife, and an anesthesiologist standing around my bed telling me we were going to hold this child's heart in our hands until we got to the OR. I looked at my husband then and said, we don't know if you'll make it in, but we're gonna get this baby out, and our goal is to keep your wife safe and here. We did that, got in the OR. Grayson was born in 1 minute and 15 seconds. I had a cesarean, very quick cesarean, and I think Grayson's heart rate was 9 and his oxygen sats were 15. I might have that turned around. I will post the pictures one day of the actual SpO2 monitor that showed that Grayson was just there. He basically was not alive, but this child had his eyes open, hence the determination that you will see going forward. He never fails me. He stays there. And he's a strong person, a strong child. So we'll fast forward. We spent about 58 days in the NICU. ended up being 5 pounds. Grayson was born at 3 pounds, 7 ounces, about 15 inches long. And he ended up being about 5 ounces when he came home. Came home on his scheduled delivery date in the first place. So that was amazing. He was this little bitty tiny baby. I rocked him, I sang to him, I prayed for him, and the doctors told me that this child will survive because he has been shown love. He's been given love. You are who he was supposed to have. This is what the doctors told me. Mind you, I never felt pregnant. I really never felt flutters. I didn't hold Grayson for 11 days because he had a arterial line and he was hooked to 6 IV pumps. He went from a warmer to an open bed to, I mean, there were just so many facets to him where we couldn't really touch him. So I would put my hands into the incubator and rub him and hold his feet and rub his head and let him know that I loved him. So came home about 5 pounds. Nothing really was different. He was a sleeping baby. He was a little baby. I kept him secluded from the world because I didn't want germs and bacteria and all these things that you don't let happen. Meanwhile, going through a tough time in a marriage. Children and sick children and new babies in general just bring stress on a marriage. So in the coming days, it became me. I was Grayson's full-time provider. Not necessarily because I wanted to, but because things worked that way. His dad had to work and I was home. And rewind a little bit too. I got married, had a baby, did everything late in life. I was over 40 when this crusade started, i.e. marriage and baby. Grayson was born when I was 42. I was turning 42 that year that he was born. So in my mind, I was independent. I was doing what I needed to do, and I didn't need help. So unfortunately, and that's probably not the right mindset as far as marriage goes, but this page is not about that. And I had Grayson. Things started to be turbulent in the marriage. Nothing ever physical, just lack thereof of responsibilities, courtesies, and respect. So I decided, Grayson was born in June. By April of the next year, I had my mindset. I delivered divorce papers and I was ready to ride and rock this boat on my own, which is what I did. So me and Grayson just went along. By the time Grayson was 1, I had filed for the divorce. By August of that same year, meaning 2018, when Grayson turned 1, I was almost fully divorced. So by August I was divorced and I was just going on about my business. We have a wonderful village. We have great friends. We have great family. And nothing changed. A little delay. Grayson didn't walk until he was 18 months. He didn't sit up until he was like 9 months. So we knew there were some normal delays due to the earliness, the prematurity of his birth. So we were okay with that. I was okay with that. Took him to the pediatrician. No one ever said he needed therapy or anything, which we found out later was a no-no. He should have been getting therapy, but God, you know, he watches out for us in that way. So, Grayson was about 18 months at the first occurrence of what started the name of this page and the foundation of why I am here now. This was the beginning of KG's journey. Didn't have a name for it then, but he was at 18 months. Grayson, I had gone back to work finally, and Grayson had been in daycare about 6 months, and he went to school one day, got the common daycare cooties, cold, and came home with the sniffles and was a little lethargic. So I kept him home one of those days, the next day, And then I decided I need to go to work. You know, it's a new job. I'll see if his granny can keep him. And thank God for grandparents, good grandparents that are still able and willing to assist. So my mother kept him. My mother and my father kept him the next day. My mother called me on and off, and I would check on him. She's like, yeah, he gets a little lethargic. He wants to be very close to me, and then he'll start to play again. And it'll keep happening every so often. So I said, keep him hydrated and give him some Tylenol, you know, just to make sure he's not getting a fever, and I'll take him back to the doctor tomorrow. So I got him home that afternoon, picked him up from Mom's house, got him home. I was meal prepping. I used to make Grayson's baby food, real baby food. I made fresh vegetables and everything. So I was meal prepping for his lunch and my lunch that evening. And he was sitting in the high chair as he always did. I kept him confined, so he couldn't get away, because at that moment he had just started to walk at about 18 months. So he would crawl mostly, but he would get up and take off and walk. So I was like, no, you're going to be in the high chair. Kept him in the high chair. I was talking to my my good friend who has now departed us. Her name's Margot. So I turned around because he wasn't beating on the high chair anymore. And I looked, and he was leaning forward, literally just leaning forward and dazing. And he was turning blue or gray or however you call it. And his lips went pale, and he just went into a full stare. Well, I turned in complete hysteria. I told her, I said, something is wrong with him. And she was like, oh my God. She hung up the phone. I'm screaming. She's screaming as they're hanging up the phone. And I remember picking up the cordless phone on the counter, because I think I had a Bluetooth in, and called 911. And they picked up. He was still, I slung him out of the chair. He was still just real daisical, you know, not able to really communicate. He could say mommy and, you know, make sounds at that time, but it was just a, you know, just a slow, and I was like, Jesus, he's dying. You know, he's gonna die in my arms. So 911 operator was very calm. They got me here. We live literally 1 to 2 minutes from the fire station. And I could hear the sirens and the horns in the distance, in the clear distance, and I kept thinking, don't let me lose him. So I was shaking him and talking to him, and as they got closer, whatever the reason is, you know, you get excited when things are going on. I take off out of the front door, and I'm literally almost down the sidewalk of my house, and I was like, you know, handing them to him before they could get out of the truck, and they're like, ma'am, let's go inside, you know. He was coming back around, kind of mumbling, mommy, mommy, and the EMT said, does he have seizures? And I was like, I don't know, but here you go, you know, just save him. Do whatever you can to save him. And it was like giving my child back to God. In that moment, knowing that, not even thinking that, you know, they're gifts and they're treasures to us, and they're only for, you know, an amount of time. But I had so little time in that moment, even though it had been 18 months. It was just like yesterday, every day. And to see him change from his active self in that moment to, that was too much for a human, for a mother, for a parent, for anybody that's in front of anybody that's, seems like they're losing their life. So they got him inside. The paramedics started telling me that his son had focal seizures, and he did the same thing. And, you know, you do want to get him checked out. So they checked his blood pressure. I think they pricked his finger. He started to play with them, rolling a ball. They're like, buddy, you're good. Mom, do you want us to transport? And I was like, no. But if you would, let me just go change, you know, put on some lounge clothes, and I'll just take him to the hospital myself. Well, when he was born, we had an amazing neurosurgeon. here in Atlanta, and he serviced the hospital that I had Grayson in. So there are 2 children's hospitals here, 2 locations. So I chose to take him to the farther hospital because that surgeon worked there, and I just knew to go there. Wasn't such a smart move. I got dressed, I got on our highway, and I was approaching the exit for the first hospital, the one I was not going to go to. And he stopped playing with the toys. I turned him around facing in the back seat so that I could turn around and see him, kind of. Not safe, but hindsight is 20/20. But it was a blessing because I knew he was having another one. So I pulled off. I was at a gas station. I got out, looked at him, and it was passing. It passed pretty fast. Both of these, his seizures normally only last 1 to 2 minutes, if that. And he snaps back, but he's very lethargic and tired after. So I get back in the car because the next corner is the hospital. I get to the hospital, get in the ER, put him in the car seat thing, put it in the stroller, walk in. Police officer checks us in because it's late night. And he's like, what are you here for? I told him. He sent us right through triage. We'll fast track you because, you know, I told him we just left EMS at our house. And so, we were checking in, and he had another one in the stroller. The admin person that was checking us in was amazing. She was a nurse because it was a night and they were short, or however it works. It wasn't just me or you sitting at the desk checking people in. She snatched him out of the car seat, took scissors off of her pants, and cut his car seat straps. And she said, follow me. Well, she's carrying my child again. Like she's giving him to Jesus, just like I did, out of the front door less than an hour before. Took him to the room, and he was fine again. Brought in a neurologist. All these specialists came in. We left with a little medicine, a low dose of seizure medicine. Got him home, and this was a Friday night, so by Monday, they had folks calling me. We went to see a neurologist. They set up an EEG. Like in 4 days, we had an EEG. During that moment, Grayson had 27 fires in like 14 minutes, I believe it was. So I knew something was wrong then because she was on her stool, had put all his little electrodes on his head, and I kept him up all night, and he was going to sleep, and she jumped off of her stool, and she left and came back, and when she came back, she came with the army, and they were like, he's got to have seizure medicine now. He's having seizures. Hit me again. But for whatever reason, I have, and I know the reason, and we know, whoever it is that you worship, just know that you know it like you know when you need to know. So in that moment, I was still strong. I didn't break because it was a doctor's appointment. It was an EEG. It was nothing abnormal, but it was weird to see all those people when they were like, he's just going to come sleep for 2 hours and then you send him home, kind of thing. Well, they gave us medicine. We came home on a low dose of medicine, and he was fine. He was fine until, let's see, June the 19th of 2019. I was at work, got a call. We think should Grayson be sleepy? Because he just stopped and kind of paused and slumped over in diaper changing time. I'm about 22 minutes from his school. I think I got there in 11. EMS was there. He had to be transported to the ER. And they did more medicine. They did a scan. They called me back along with the neurologist. We need you to come in. I was like, you know, I got this. We go in. We see the neurosurgeon. They show me this picture of Grayson's brain from the MRI. And he now has a tumor, a glioma, in the front of his brain. This thing in the back that happened when he was born stable. Out of sight, out of mind. It has not been active. It didn't work. It has not been active until this day. Does nothing. So we get this glioma. But we're going to watch it. We're going to watch it and we're going to see what it does. And there are some options. We can do surgery. We can do chemotherapy. We can do radiotherapy. We can do test drugs, you know. But we'll watch it. We'll watch it. So that was in June. Kept having scans every 90 days. Here comes 2020. February of 2020, he had another scan. It had grown. Tumor was growing in the front of his head, so that means, in essence, it's growing slow. So now they want to treat it slow, and which made sense. We're going to treat it like it's growing, so it's kind of fooled by the treatment plan. So we did the slow watch, but the doctor at that point was like, since it is growing, I think I want to take it out. So by March the 25th of 2020, he was having a biopsy, which you guys know what March 2020 brought. It brought on COVID, the coronavirus, as we now call it, COVID-19. There were no vaccines. There was nothing. People were dropping out like flies, just dying. So that was March the 13th, Friday the 13th, when they shut down where we live in the state. It was kind of like, you know, no more anything. That means I stopped working in the office. I had to come home. He had to come out of daycare. So we were doing that. And then came March 25th. But COVID-19, the pandemic, has been the biggest blessing of my life. Unfortunately, it took a hit. Our nation, our world took a hit, and so many people, rest their souls, lost their lives to an awful, awful virus. But it was a blessing for me, because the one thing about it is I have watched Grayson grow and thrive on my own. I didn't need a caregiver. I didn't need to take off of work. I didn't need to do FMLA. I didn't need to do anything. The job I had was remote before I had him, so the same work was happening here where I live. However, we had to go into the office. That changed back to remote. I got offered additional work. So in moments of that journey in the very beginning, I worked 2 jobs and had a 2.5-year-old here at home every day in this actual space working. And the world was very gracious. The work world was very gracious about it. So March 25th, we had a biopsy, and they were checking to make sure that this cancer, that this tumor was not or was cancer. They were trying to see if it was malignant or benign. That happened on a Friday. We had to spend the night. We came home by Saturday. They called me Monday, and they also did genetics testing on myself and him. They did request his father's presence, and that did not take place. However, that is not a part of our journey, and to each his own. They let me know that the genetic piece of whatever he was going through was not on my behalf, A, and B, the tumor was benign, no cancer. Thank you. Thank you. So I could breathe, but I still had a lump in my throat, because now the surgeon is like, we want to take it out, i.e. a craniotomy. And if you haven't seen Grayson yet, or if you have, or if you know him, you'll see that he has a cut from ear to ear, and it is the smile. I tell him it is the smile that God gave him. He shined down on him and gave him a special smile over the crown of his head. So Grayson went through craniotomy surgery on July the 27th of 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, 7.5 hours. They removed all but like 1 millimeter of the tumor in the front of his brain. He has metal plates and screws in the front of his head. It was 7.5 hours of no one and nothing. The hospitals were closed to visitors. Could only be one parent, one guardian, one whoever, one. And if you left, you were not able to come back because he had open wounds, and I had to recertify, do COVID testing again if I left. I sat in my car in the parking deck and I worked that day. I didn't even tell my job that my son was having this major surgery. Because when we went in, through all the appointments pre-surgery and even after surgery, I was given this strength by the Almighty every single time that I went into a room or someone called me with results. I knew we were going to be okay. I was shaken one time, and that's when it initially occurred in my kitchen when he had the initial seizure. But during that recovery and all of that, Grayson was, he went through a battery of tests. We knew that there was some developmental delay from the start of his life, but now there would be more. So he was able to be tested and was also diagnosed with autism, which you will see on our journey as well. I'll bring that up. But I just wanted to give you a little start to where we are and how we got here. I will touch on it along the journey and along the way. There's a lot to talk about. So he recovers from the craniotomy, but not without a little incident. So we were supposed to stay for 7 days in the hospital. For whatever reason, we were home in 3. My child is resilient. He got up out of surgery. He sat up when they rolled him in from recovery and was like, I'm so hungry. And he's still hungry. And his head was a little bitty baby head at that time, but it had enlarged. It was flat from the side and it was leaking. So I dealt with that for 3 days by myself with the nurses and the doctors and the amazing people that worked during that time. And thank you for your service, for all the doctors, nurses, medical staff, anybody, anywhere who had to endure those moments with parents, with sick babies, sick elders, anybody that was sick. You guys are amazing. You rock. We came home on Wednesday. By Friday, Grayson woke up and he was doing this blinking. His eyes looked like the vertical hold on an old school TV. I panicked, but I was calm. I called the doctor. They were like, up his medicine. You know, you didn't know that, but up his medicine because he's had trauma to his brain, and this is, you know, some things will happen. We did a video call with them, and they let me know that everything was okay. Gave him the medicine, and about a day and a half, that stopped. He really wasn't talking, so cognitively, I couldn't tell you if, you know, it was affecting his speech or his balance or anything, because he was still kind of down and on pain medicine every now and again. But I think we were done with the pain medicine by Sunday. Like, he didn't need it. I was more concerned about the exposure of his head, so I kept him in. Nobody could come in. We had an amazing village. We had a food train. I had more food than I could ever stand, because it was just Grayson and I at that time just eating, and he wasn't eating like foods like rib bones. So we went through that. We went through recovery, and then Grayson by that time was 3 years old. He had a birthday kind of, so that March before he had the craniotomy, well, before he had the biopsy, there was March, April, May, June. In June, he turned 3. July, he had a craniotomy at the age of 3. So he was 3 by the time his craniotomy was done, and we were in recovery. Working through the process, all good, doing scans, and sometime after that, at about 4.5, we took a scan, and this piece that they left, the 1.5 whatever millimeter, was starting to grow again, this tumor. I went in with the battle with the army, covered, and I walked out like, we're gonna beat this. So at that moment, there's no more surgery. We don't want to do surgery because it's in a place that can affect his fine motor and his just could affect him, his balance, his movement, everything. So, ma'am, we don't really want to do surgery. Our options now are radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and this test drug that they were talking about. So they gave me all the paperwork. The profession that I'm in, I researched and figured it out, and we decided to where we are now, which is another part of KG's journey, is to go ahead and do the chemotherapy. It was set for 12 to 18 months, one time a week, and we did that. We did just that. We went every week from February of 2022 to February or March of this year, 2023. Once a week. My son had a port implanted in his chest, and he was punctured in his chest every single week. His mother was there with him every single week. We had an amazing village. We had amazing prayer partners. We were covered. Grayson was a little scared in the beginning, but now he's just a trooper, and he made it over. The blessing is that he got sick one time. No side effects, really. Behaviorally, he changed. I'll get on that part, too, when I start to talk about his autism later on down the road. He went to school. He was out once a week. I continued to work and to go to every appointment he's ever had. We've never missed an appointment. We've never missed a beat. And it's been an amazing journey. And I thank you guys. I thank everyone out there who's taken the time to listen to this, and who knows our journey, and who prayed for us, and who was with us like every step of the way. This day in the life of KG's, it's been a long time coming. And I thank you guys. I thank you guys for watching. Please follow us. Keep praying for us. We love you. We love you. We can't wait to get to know you guys. We thank you. We thank you again. Single mamas, single parents, parents in general, just be encouraged. Be encouraged and tune in and watch us as I give you tidbits of our daily life. We'll sing at night. We'll sing in the car. We'll walk in the grocery store. You'll see us do a range of different things. I don't just want to be on the, downward Debbie Downer side of everything, because it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be a mom to a special needs son. It's a blessing to see his healing in process. And this is healing for me, to be able to give to you and share with you us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your prayers, and have an amazing day, night, evening, or wherever you are. And keep us lifted and tune in. Thank you.